In this video, we're continuing with our algebra review unit. We're going to look at a few examples on how to graph lines, just again for review. So let's take a look at example 1, part A. And we want to graph and fill in the missing information. So we want to graph the line that has an x-intercept of -4 and a y-intercept of -3. And then we're going to want to find the slope, the parallel slope, and the perpendicular slope. So let's go ahead and graph an x-intercept of -4. Remember, the x-intercept is where the graph crosses the x-axis. So that's going to be here at -4. That's -4 comma 0. And the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So that's at -3. So let's put a point there. And then we just simply have to draw the line through those 2 points. Okay, now we could use these points and use the slope formula to find the slope, but we could also use the graph. So I'm going to look at my rise over run for the graph. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3. So my rise is 3. And then my run, I'm going to the left, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I went to the left, so that's -4, and that gives me my slope. So my slope is going to be, it doesn't really matter where we put the negative, I'm going to put it in the front, -3/4. A parallel slope, so a line that's parallel to this, remember parallel lines have the same slope, so that also has to be -3/4. And then my perpendicular slope, any line that's perpendicular to this, its slope has to be the opposite, so it's going to be positive, and the reciprocal, so positive, and the reciprocal is 4/3. Alright, so let's move on to part C. This is given to us in slope-intercept form. Remember, that's y equals mx plus b. Slope intercept form. So I know that the slope is -4/5 and the y-intercept is 5. So I can use the equation to help me graph it. So y-intercept of 5, so I'm going to make a point at 5, and then my slope is -4/5. So m equals -4/5. So what that means is I can either go up 4, left 5, or I can go down 4 and right 5. Or I could do both to find a couple of points. But since I'm already at the top of my graph, I'm going to go down 4 and right 5 to find a couple more points. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 1 point there. Now normally I would graph one more point, but we're kind of running out of room. So I'm just going to go with 2 points. I'm going to graph my line that goes through those 2 points. Alright, and then we figured out that the slope, we figured that out right from the equation. That's -4/5. So my slope is -4/5. Any line that's parallel to this has to have the same slope. So the parallel slope is going to be -4/5. And then any line that's perpendicular to it is going to be the opposite. So it's going to be positive, and the reciprocal 5/4. Alright, let's take a look at one more problem in this video. Again, if you need to pause because it's going too fast, or you want to go back and rewatch something, I strongly recommend you do that. Alright, so this equation is given in standard form, and it's much easier for us to work with it if it's in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to rearrange this. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So I get -y is equal to -2x plus 3. And then I'm just going to multiply through by -1 to change the sign of everything. So -1 times -y is y. negative 1 times negative 2x is 2x, and negative 1 times positive 3 is negative 3. Alright, so now that I'm in slope-intercept form, I have a slope of 2, which is really 2 over 1. I like it as a fraction. That's going to help me when I graph it. And a y-intercept of negative 3. So let's start with our y-intercept of negative 3. And then my slope is 2 over 1, so that means my rise over run is 2 and 1. So I'm going to go up 2 to the right 1. So up 2 to the right 1. So that gives me another point there. Let's graph a couple more. Up 2 to the right 1. Let's do one more. Up 2 to the right 1. That gives me a fourth point. We don't really need 4, but since they're kind of close together, it'll help me get a more accurate graph. So here's my line that goes through those 4 points with a positive slope of 2. So my slope is 2, or 2 over 1. My parallel slope also has to be 2, and then my perpendicular slope has to be the opposite, and the reciprocal of 2. Remember, this is really 2 over 1. It's the same as 2 over 1. So then the reciprocal would be 1 over 2. Alright, so there's 3 examples of review on graphing lines. Go ahead and finish the rest of the examples in this part of the packet. And as always, if you have questions, make sure you get those answers, and we'll see you next time.